Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in Hollywood, California. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, all sorts of good stuff going on. And I, of course, am joined by my cohort today, the one and the only, Biggs Darklighter, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Inside joke.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
I'm doing great now.
It's a fine day today.
It is a great day today, and made better by the fact that we got some really cool stuff to talk about here.
We
today.
do. That new trailer dropped last night.
It did. We got that. We're going to talk a little bit of John Wick. We're going to talk a little bit of Venom. But before we get to any of that, just going to remind you guys that yesterday's question of the day that we asked you, due to all the rumors coming out about the new Batman movie, when it might start shooting, I asked you guys in the question of the day, do you think the new Batman movie will actually start shooting sometime in 2019? And it stayed absolutely constant the whole day. 30% of you said, yes, you think it'll actually start shooting 2019. 70% of you said, nope, we ain't holding our breath. Whether or not it actually does, we'll have to now wait and see. We got a new question of the day coming up a little bit later, and we'll get to that in just a bit. Now, before we get into our main topics that you guys emailed into us, a little bit of off the top here today. Now, we've known for a while that the studios have been looking at doing a Barbie movie for a while. And what's the name of the comedian from Trainwreck again? Fact checker Jonathan? No, the girl.
Amy Schumer?
Amy Schumer, thank you.
Oh.
They were looking for a while about doing a different take on it with Amy Schumer, which, to be honest with you, I was curious about. I think the whole idea about how, because the Barbie franchise and IP has had a degree of, controversy surrounding for a while. That does it create unrealistic image expectations for girls and blah, blah, blah. So they had this notion for an idea, which I thought was interesting, with Amy Schumer in the lead, that she was kicked out of Barbie world because she wasn't perfect enough. Interesting take. Now, apparently they changed directions, because then later on they said they were going to go with an Anne Hathaway. Well, you can't do that same story with Anne Hathaway. But then that kind of came and went. Then there were whispers of a Margot Robbie maybe doing it, but nothing ever really kind of materialized. Well, it is now official, according to the Hollywood Reporter. Warner Brothers has finalized a deal with Mattel in partnership with Margot Robbie and her production company, which I believe is called Lucky Fella, or Lucky Lad. That's the name of her production company.
How appropriate.
For her to star in and produce an upcoming Barbie film. Now, of course, then the heads of Warner Brother and the heads of Mattel spoke all types of, this is the greatest thing ever. We're so excited about this. Barbie is, Robert, an iconic figure going back. I mean, there are not many toys that are like a G.I. Joe, that are like a Barbie, that have endured generation after generation after. There's a staying power to that. With Margot Robbie attached, a studio like Warner Brothers, Mattel on board, which is an inferior toy company. I have to say that because my wife works for Hasbro. What do you think about this news? Do you think they can make something worthwhile out of a Barbie film with Margot Robbie?
Well, in this day and age, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. Look, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary series, The Toys That Made Us. If you guys haven't,
fabulous.
The Barbie episode is fascinating.
I've never seen the Barbie episode.
It's really, really good, because it talks about not only Mattel as a company, but it talks about how different, how women's rights and how the evolution of Barbie. It's a very interesting story. And from my perspective, I have a long history with Barbie personally, because my sister would get Barbies, and they would make great civilian things like vehicles that my 12-inch G.I. Joes couldn't play in. My favorite thing ever was this 4-story Barbie townhouse that had this string elevator that it could. I can't tell you how many times my G.I. Joes had assaulted that building to save Barbie from various nefarious, scheming villains. And Barbie had a Corvette.
Yeah.
They never made Corvettes or townhouses for men's toys. G.I. Joe had nowhere to live. He had no apartment. And he had like the mobile support vehicle in the headquarters, but where he was going to go to for some R&R when he had some furlough
Where's
time.
he going to watch the football game with his
buddies?
In my
house,
him and Snake Eyes going to knock back a couple.
In my house, he went to Barbie's Dream House, or Barbie's whatever it was.
But didn't we all do that? I mean, look, even in Toy Story, in the beginning of Toy Story, Andy is playing with Sheriff Woody, but they incorporated his sister's toys into that as well. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I would have my WWE wrestler figures, but there weren't enough of them to make enough matches. So every once in a while, my Randy the Macho Man Savage figure would have to wrestle, Grumpy Bear from the Care Bear. I mean, that's what we just did, right?
Yeah, and Fembots, $6 Million Man,
Yep.
the evil Fembots. I mean, Barbie could be a fembot. Barbie could be a superhero that was in civilian garb. There was a lot Barbie could do when you were a small boy.
But the one thing you mentioned there that I think is really true, I'm not even going to touch that. There's some interesting
Come
things
on now.
you could do. What makes it, the thing you said that is really interesting is it's going to be interesting. How do you approach this today? Because like you said off the top, there is a lot of discussion around, is the Barbie image a good image? I think it is. I know a lot of young girls, my sisters themselves, enjoyed playing with these dolls and things like that. I never saw a lot of negative ramification, but some people raised some valid points about unrealistic expectations of what a woman should look like physically.
Yeah.
And now that you've got a Margot Robbie, quite arguably one of the most stunningly perfect, beautiful human beings on the face of the planet. It will be, clearly they're not going in the Amy Schumer direction with whatever they're doing, so it will be interesting to see what they do from here. No announcement yet as to when they're aiming to get this thing going, but the deal's signed, so they're going to be moving forward with it. All right. With that off the top out of the way, let's get into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Where it's really pretty simple. You guys select them by emailing me your topics and questions to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, keep those emails to 90 words or less. With that out of the way, let's get to our first email today. And the first email today comes to us from our good friend Moat Ashire, who writes, one of my favorite 2018 movies was Venom. Yeah, it was sloppy in spots, but I had a wildly good time with it. Just heard that Sony is officially moving forward with the sequel and will open in 2020. The one question mark is director. According to the reports, they may get a new one for the sequel. Considering the first one was such a big hit, isn't it a mistake to not just bring back the same guy? Cheers and bring on the filthy. All right, for those of you who aren't quite clear about what it is Moat is writing about, Variety put out an exclusive story talking about the upcoming Venom. Here are some of the highlights from that story. First things first, Kelly Marcel, who was one of the 3 screenwriters on the first Venom movie, she alone is being brought back to write the script for Venom 2. She's also going to be giving the credit of an executive producer. One of her other films in her background was the big screen adaptation of 50 Shades of Grey. Wah, wah. But anyway, clearly she must have a great idea for Venom 2. All right. Michelle Williams is expected to return for the sequel. A lot of people were wondering about that. Woody Harrelson, of course, is set up in the last film to return for this one as well. So he's expected to be there. They're saying the expected release date right now, though it's not official, is October of 2020. So 3 years ago, we announced Matt Reeves as a Batman thing. In 2020, we're going to get Venom 2. So I'll let you guys go ahead. But the big thing that Moat is talking about that is in this report is that Ruben Fleischer, who directed the first Venom, is not coming back. They are most likely going to be looking for a new director for this one. Robert Moat raises an interesting question. With all the big success, $855+ million at the box office, a lot of fans really liking Venom. Is it a mistake to not bring Ruben Fleischer back at this point?
Well, I think he's doing Zombieland 2 right now. So it might be a scheduling conflict. If they want to fast track Venom 2, and why not get more of that cheddar in the coffers of Sony. If a director's not available, he's not available. And if they want it to come out in October 2020, they've got to start making that movie soon, because there is a lot of visual effects, obviously, that you're looking at a year's worth of effects on a film like that, which means they need to start shooting soon. They have to have a script. I can't get out of my head, since you brought up Kelly Marcel wrote 50 Shades of Grey.
The adaptation. You can't blame her for the story.
What if Christian Grey was Venom?
Oh, it's a shared cinematic universe.
I want to see that movie. I mean, imagine if you went into his Red Room, what Venom could do in that. I don't know. But anyway, since you brought it up, it's just something that's striking me this morning. But no, I think, look, I really loved Zombieland.
Right.
I thought it was great. And I did like this sort of maniacal sensibility that was in Venom.
Right.
I mean, for as goofy as it was, there was something pretty gonzo about it. if they're going to go with another director, I would like to see another director that has that same gonzo sensibility. If Carnage is indeed, if Woody Harrelson comes back and plays Carnage, to really go over the top.
Right.
Like really embrace the goofy. And if Carnage is going to fight Venom, can you imagine what that's going to look like? I mean, that could be really cool.
Well, look, I'm somebody who I liked. I had a really good time with them. I think I saw it for the first time with Ray. I think you were with me, Ray, when we saw it for the first time. And I really enjoyed the movie. I had quite a good time with it.
Yeah.
I didn't think the fight between, say, Venom and Riot looked all that great.
No, that's why they should start the movie now and get us some better visual
effects.
Well,
yeah, and the choreography of the fight, I thought there was just more interesting things they could have done. Don't get me wrong, I didn't dislike it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay.
I agree. It was...
I'll say this, though. While I don't mind the job that Ruben Fleischer did on Venom, and I certainly wouldn't mind if they announced that he was going to come back to do Venom 2. If they announced he was coming back to do Venom 2, that'd be great. Sure. Wonderful.
Right.
But even as a fan of that first movie, I don't know that I'm going to lose any sleep if he doesn't, because I'll be frank with you, some of the problems I had with the film can kind of be brought down to direction a little bit, you know? It's not just that it was a poorly written bad guy. They didn't use him well on the screen.
Right.
That the first act, I felt they just took too long to get to Eddie and the symbiote merging together. I mean, and they did some good stuff in the first act, but I really started to look at my watch. And I remember mentioning to Ray coming out of it, is like, I think part of the reason there were a number of people who ended up not liking Venom was because the movie lost a lot of people in that extended first act. And by that point, you just couldn't get... Once you lose, there are some movie audience people that once you lose them, you can't get them back.
Right.
I think that's what happened with Christopher Robin a little bit, because I thought that was great overall, but a lot of people lost a lot of people in the first act. I think Venom lost a lot of people in the first act, unfortunately. So...
Yeah, you might be right about that.
Again, I'm not pinning all the faults of the first Venom on Ruben Fleischer.
Right.
I'm just saying that if he was coming back, great. But honestly, I don't think what's going to make it or break a Venom 2 is getting a Ruben Fleischer back. It's not like Christopher Nolan, who does Batman Begins.
Right.
Man, it's like, man, you got to get that guy back at least for the sequel. You got to at least get him to carry that through. I don't feel that same sense for this one.
You know what? I completely agree with you. I mean, I think Venom is a franchise that might even benefit by having different directorial takes with each movie.
Makes it up a bit.
Yeah. And so the Venom trilogy, by the third movie, imagine how gonzo you could get. I mean, depending on where you're going to go.
And speaking of the gonzo stuff, here's what I think they need to do. And I don't know if maybe this is really far out there, but I would almost think that with Carnage, you go a little darker, a little more serious to make the gonzo-ness of everything else stand out and pop a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? So maybe you could use Carnage in a darker, more serious way just to make all the lighter stuff stand out and shine a little bit more.
You know who they could get? Miller and Lord.
Ooh. But could you get them at this point?
I don't know. But
they've had some success with Sony.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, they've done some great... I liked the 21 Jump Street movies.
Yeah.
You know, and combine that with the Into the Spider-Verse. What do you think they could do with a Venom film?
Damn. Now you just now I'm going to be completely focused on getting Lord and Miller to do
There you
Venom.
go, Sony. I'll give that one to you.
You're right. Look, I don't believe there's any one perfect director match for a movie, but the Lord and Miller idea, considering like they were just involved with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, they've got some good working history and success with Sony. Wasn't Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs also a Sony picture? Was that not a Sony animation?
I think it was.
If that's the case, and they really do have a good long history with them.
I mean, can you imagine?
There you go. You're welcome.
They could do the Empire Strikes Back of Venom movies.
See, now I'm going to be obsessed about that. Thanks so much for putting that in my head. All right, let's move on to the next topic.
All right, the next topic comes to us from Martin Russell. He says, without question, one of the upcoming movies I'm most looking forward to is Denis Villeneuve's take on Dune. You and me both, brother. With Timothée Chalamet and Rebecca Ferguson already in the movie, the cast is already fantastic. Tonight, I also found out that Dave Bautista has joined. I'm a little conflicted. I like Bautista, but he's not the best actor in the world. Why did he get this role? Should this make me worry about the movie? What do you think, John?
Interesting thing. You know, you mentioned that Dave Bautista is not the greatest actor in the world. You know who's the first person who will tell you that? Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
He'll be the first guy to tell you that. One of the reasons I love this guy so much. You hear a lot of these Hollywood people, even the ones who break into it recently, and they're like, I deserve to be here. Whenever I've talked to Dave Bautista, it's always been, man, every day I wake up, I got to pinch myself that I get to be in the movies, man.
Right.
He goes, somebody with my background, I'm just going to keep working hard, be grateful for these opportunities. It's so refreshing to hear somebody talk like that. But what Dave Bautista has benefited from is he has put himself in a number of projects where the director knows how to accentuate their strengths and hide their weaknesses. Look at Guardians of the Galaxy. In the hands of a James Gunn, Dave Bautista has a very limited range of what he can do as an actor, but there are a few things he can really nail. And James Gunn just exploited those, nailed on those things that he did well, while never putting him in a position to expose that required a lot of thespianism,
right,
to expose his weaknesses, and he came across as great. Now, let's not forget, Dave Bautista just worked with Denis Villeneuve in the Blade Runner film, and he did the exact same thing as James Gunn did. Put Dave Bautista in a position where you can highlight the things he's learned to do well and don't expose those sides of him that can't do something well. If he can do the same thing in a Dune, Dave Bautista can bring something really special to this movie, and you got tremendous acting talent across the aisle from him in a Timothée Chalamet and a Rebecca Ferguson. I would say at this point, in the hands of a director like Denis, I would say there is nothing to worry about at this point. What do you think?
Well, I think if you know Dune, if you've read the book, right off the top of my head, there's a character named the Beast Raban, who's he's perfect for that role. He's part of the Harkonnens. He's a bad dude. He was sort of shortchanged in the David Lynch version. There's not a lot of him in it, but there's so many great roles. I mean, Dune is truly a huge ensemble cast. And if you watch, there were 3 Blade Runner 2049 short films that were made, like they did these 3 shorts.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
and he stars in one.
I didn't see that one. I saw the one with Jared Leto, but
he's really good.
Oh, okay.
Like he really, I thought he was great. You see more of Sapper Morton before, obviously, the opening scene in 2049.
Right.
But he's really good. And I think, again, like you pointed out, it's you play to an actor's strengths. And I think, look, Bautista is a presence man. He's on camera.
That's a great way to put it.
And
he's got
he
presence.
Is a presence.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got that magical something. I mean, his face, the camera loves him. The way he moved. Don't count out his performance in Blade Runner 2049. I know it's only at the beginning, but he really brought soul to, spoiler alert, a replicant.
Right.
He was really good.
Yeah. And again, in the hand of the right director. Now, look, do you make Dave Bautista Paul Atreides? Do you make him the lead character of your giant epic? No, you don't. But in the hand of the right director, in the right supporting role, a guy who's got, I love the way you phrase that, the presence. A guy who's got a presence like Dave Bautista. Denis Villeneuve can make something really good out of that.
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, Patrick Stewart played Gurney Halleck.
Yes.
In who is basically teaching Paul Atreides the way of war.
Right.
You know, and he teaches him how to use the weirding modules and everything. And why couldn't Bautista play a much fiercer, like a scary version of Gurney Halleck, who's teaching Paul how to fight?
How intimidating would that be, though? Step in the shoes of Patrick Stewart.
That would
That'd
be
be a
rough.
little intimidating.
But again, you're changing up the character. So
Yeah.
you're not doing, and you make that guy a fearsome warrior, and he comes back because Gurney, ends up with the Fremen as well. He comes back. Spoiler alert. But yeah, he could do that too.
Yeah. Long and short of it here is this. No, I don't think there's anything here to worry about.
No.
I really don't. Not at this point.
I can't wait for this movie, dude.
Oh,
This
God,
is number one with
me?
a bullet for me.
And how long has he been developing this thing? Like he has been. It's now been years that he's been trying to develop this thing and get this thing going. Again, it would be a different conversation if Denis Villeneuve came out and announced that Dave Bautista is going to be his lead character,
Right.
and he's got to carry the movie.
All Atreides as Dave Bautista.
That would be a different discussion. But something like this, honestly, I don't think there's anything to worry about. All right, let's move on now to the next email today. And our next email today comes to us from Veronica Dapple, who writes, a bunch of us were watching Clemson roll over Alabama. That was a destruction. We can talk about that another time. Anyway, a lot of us were watching Clemson roll over Alabama, and a new trailer for Captain Marvel came on. I liked the first trailer, although I didn't think it was anything special. I love this new one, though. I thought it had a lot more personality and gave me a bigger picture of the idea of what the movie would feel like. What did you think of the new trailer, and do you think it was an improvement over the first one, or even the first couple at this point. Robert, they did drop, kind of surprisingly, although there were whispers they may drop a new Captain Marvel trailer with the National Championship game.
Right.
But they dropped that trailer with it, which is funny. They're dropping all these Captain Marvel trailers with the sporting events. But what did you think? I mean, we've talked about the other Captain Marvel trailers, and both of us liked the other trailers, weren't blown away by them, didn't think they were anything special. Does this trailer do anything to mark any sort of an improvement in their strategy so far?
You know, again, I liked the trailer, but I'm a little lukewarm on, I think on her, because I think we're seeing the Brie Larson that doesn't quite know who she is. She says in the trailer, I don't know my past.
Yeah, this is the character.
But there are things in it, like she says, when I do love the conversation with Nick Fury when she's explaining what Skrulls are, and
I thought that was great. Yeah,
but why would she? You know, I know she blows up the jukebox. I'm like, do you really have to do that? I love how Nick Fury is like, well, how does that convince me you're not a Skrull?
Yeah.
I don't know that
Skrulls
Skrulls can't do that.
Yeah.
And I did love the moment. I love the moment where she puts on the shield cap. And says, so, you know, how does this article of clothing help? You know,
wearing your branding and going with the whole secret society thing.
And then the rubber suit. Well, you're a space warrior in a rubber.
Perfect Nick Fury line.
It's great. And I think I really like this buddy cop aspect. I mean, this sort of Lethal Weapon. Nick Fury is Murtaugh and she's Riggs.
Yeah.
You know, I think I like that. I mean, if that's what they're going to do and that's what they're going to take it, but I think they're really holding back on the storyline. They've given us a bit. And I love that single shot where she wrecks shop, full on Captain America flying through attacking the ships. That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome.
We've seen that footage before,
right?
But it's quite effective.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit more of it in that trailer where you see the ships. Look, again, I'm really excited to see this movie. I love the Carol Danvers character. I have ever since Avengers Annual 10. I think this is going to be a really fun film. I think they're holding back though. Because they want to come out. I think they can't show us very much. Just like that Kevin Feige interview that came out where he said, we're not going to show you anything but the first 10 or 15 minutes of Endgame.
Right.
You know, they can't do it. They'll spill the beans.
I watched this trailer and I felt, number one, I felt it was the best trailer they put out yet.
I do too.
And I completely agree with the person who wrote in the email that I got a better sense of the personality of this movie, far more than I did with the other ones. And I love the way you described that one angle of it, that there's a little bit of a buddy cop kind of angle to this with Nick Fury and her. And I love Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury. Ugh. And you know, it's funny, I mentioned this yesterday, but on my flight back from Toronto last week, I watched Winter Soldier again.
Yeah.
And always knowing how brilliant that movie is, but you forget how brilliant the movie is till you watch it again. And that Nick Fury is that same Nick Fury from Winter Soldier, which I thought was great. The power-up stuff was good. Again, they didn't show us too much more. They just seemed to use this trailer to give us a better sense of the personality of the movie. But I'm also in the same camp as you a little bit. While I do believe this was the best trailer they've done yet, and I enjoyed this trailer, once again, though, they have failed in the sense that I'm not blown away yet.
No.
And that's fine. Not every trailer has to blow you away. I liked the trailer. I thought it was good. Thumbs up from me. But did it have that impact on me that the first Aquaman trailer hit, when it hit at Comic-Con and the impact that had me? Did it have the same impact as that Infinity War trailer, when that Infinity War trailer came out so long ago, when we were all like, oh, like, this is a good trailer, thumbs up, best one yet, more idea of the personality, but not quite knocking it out of the park.
You know what it's missing? It's missing spectacle. You know, it's you get these shots of her as a little girl, her as a test pilot, but there's no, where's Ronan? Where's Jaimin Hansu? You know, this movie has an incredible cast, like a lot of these Marvel movies do.
They gave us Coulson. They finally gave us a little bit of Coulson. They finally gave us a little,
which I liked. He looks great.
Too. Yep.
And I love how he's saying, well, is there only one of them? And, you know, it's whatever. The
By the way, you could do anything with Clark Gregg and I'll eat it, because I think Clark Gregg is just
he's
awesome.
Great. But there's a lot of this movie that they showed us a little bit more of Jude Law. I love everything Jude Law's in.
Yes, they definitely gave us more of that.
And, you know, we get the same, it's the same training that we've seen in so many different movies. Like you've got the elder statesman training the younger new character. But there's a lot of this movie that we're not seeing. So even though the trailers leave me a little, I would say, underwhelmed, I'm really excited to see this movie because I think Marvel's they're learning to hold things back. They don't need to show us the filthy yet.
Right.
You know, they can wait. I'm excited. And the fact they started selling tickets on Fandango already.
Yes.
So that's pretty interesting. I mean, 2 months out.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And you know what? I was really thinking there was a period of time that I really thought they were going to employ the same strategy with Captain Marvel that they employed so effectively with Black Panther. Before Black Panther comes out, start showing Black Panther in the Infinity War trailers.
Right.
And that was a strategy they employed. And what was the result? Just $1.3 billion at the box office. No big deal. And I really thought, I think that probably a lot of us might have suspected that they might do the same thing, that they might start utilizing, like, I'll be honest with you, I thought there was a solid 50% chance that we were going to see Captain Marvel in that first Endgame trailer. They didn't. I think, and I thought that was the right move for that trailer.
Me too.
It just showed us probably, I think, the first 5 minutes of the movie. Fine. But it looks like maybe they're leaning away from doing that. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of results they get.
Well, Kevin Feige in his interview, this is what I thought was funny. He said that in Endgame there were many, 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 many secrets. He used the word many 4 times. There's a lot of secrets. And he's like, we don't want to spoil one of them.
Right.
So I'm like, good. Because you know me, I thought they shouldn't even release a trailer.
Yes.
So
yes,
I think they're doing the same thing with Captain Marvel. I think they're holding back.
All right. Let's move on to the next topic, Robert.
The next topic comes to us from Xavier Martinez. He says, hope your 2019 is off to a great start.
It is.
That's me too. I think so too. I just had the pleasure of watching John Wick 1 and 2 for the first time. Wow, son. How'd you like that? This past holiday season, and damn, Chapter 3 jumped to the top of my most anticipated for the year. If Chapter 3 lives up to the first 2 installments, where would you put the trilogy amongst action franchises? For me, the trilogy is going to be hard to beat as far as straight, raw action goes. Thanks, and have a good one. What do you think, man?
You know what? I'll tell you what. It's one of those questions that come up where you have an instant reaction.
Yeah.
And you go, well, obviously. And then you think about it for a second. Well, wait a minute. And I'll tell you what. My first reaction to that question was, dude, we live in a world with the Die Hard trilogy, for heaven's sakes. We live in a world with a lot of these other franchises. But as I read and listened to you reading off the question even deeper about, you know, as far as pure action, as a true action franchise, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be hard-pressed. If John Wick 3 can come in, and by the way, the movie may suck, but if John Wick 3 comes in even on par with John Wick 1 and John Wick 2, I'll tell you what right now. I'm not saying John Wick is a better set of films than the original Die Hard trilogy. I'm not necessarily saying that.
Right.
But if you want to specify the question to as far as a pure action genre set of films go, I'll tell you what, other than the various ninja trilogies that came out in the 80s,
Michael Dudikoff.
Michael Dudikoff, Shokasagi, and guys like that.
Steve James.
What was that? What? Jim Cotta. Did you ever see
a new kind of Kurt Thomas is a new kind of martial arts superhero. I took a date to Jim Cotta.
Jim Cotta?
I took Catherine Kent, who I took to my senior prom, who was still delightful, by the way. I took her to see Jim Cotta. Now, she knew me. But she was, after the movie was over, she's like, what the hell was that?
Never take me to see that again.
Come on.
I'll tell you what, though. I've gone from my instant knee-jerk reaction, don't be silly, to, you know what? Maybe it is. I think there is an argument. Because, look, that first John Wick movie, I have never spoken to anybody that came out of that first John Wick film that wasn't shocked about just how great. Because that movie looked like your definition of a throwaway little Keanu Reeves little action film. Who cares?
Grindstone Releasing presents
yes.
John Wick.
and they didn't release the first trailer till 4 weeks before that movie came out. It looked a little bit like they might have been hiding it a bit. It comes out, shocks us all. John Wick 2, maybe not quite as good. It's missing that puppy element.
And the action's a little repetitive.
A little bit. But still, white knuckle, engaging, all that kind of stuff.
Beautifully shot and edited.
The fights between him and Common, I thought was fantastic.
You know, I think another thing about the John Wick films that really doesn't get enough play is the universe that it's created.
Yes.
And all the secondary, in a way, they're fantasy films. This idea that these secret societies exist, this society of assassins, and they're dominated or they're run by this code of honor that everybody, I mean, the fact that he's excommunicated, from the, never mind. But the world and the hotel and Ian McShane, and it's so great. The secondary characters and the addition of people like Larry Fishburne and all that stuff is so awesome.
And let's not forget they've got the television series coming, the Continental television series, which is supposed to be shared cinematic universe.
Well,
with the movies
and Lance Reddick. I mean, you got to have him. It's so that's what makes those movies fun. Is there's this world that they're doing world building just like a science fiction movie does world building, and for us fantasy genre freaks, there's a lot more there than just action, and I think that's why those movies are so appealing. But I think there's a case to be made if they stick the landing, if they have the Return of the King of the John Wick franchise, then very possibly one of the great action trilogies or great trilogies of all time for what it is.
And I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say, I think if John Wick, and that's a huge if, but if John Wick 3 can be on par with 1 and 2, I will say there is an argument to be made that it might be the greatest pure action trilogy of all time. It's going to be at least an interesting discussion. But you know what, guys? That brings us to today's question of the day. And my question of the day for you guys today is revolving around that. It's simply this. If John Wick 3 is on par with John Wick 1 and 2, do you guys feel that there is an argument to be made that it is the greatest action trilogy of all time? Here's how you answer that. You just simply go to my Twitter account. It's just twitter.com/John Campea. I just put this thing up. We got a little over 1,300 votes right now. And overwhelmingly, this surprises me. 74% of you are saying yes. If John Wick 3 is on par with 1 and 2, it's got to be in the conversation of the greatest action trilogy of all time. 26% of you right now are saying no. We will revisit this question again tomorrow. We'll give you the final results. This poll will be up for another 23 hours. So go and answer it now.
I just like to point out that Hot Toys is releasing both a John Wick and a Neo figure this year. So I'm going to get them and I'm going to put them on this desk and they're going to fight. Who wins, Neo or John Wick?
One's got superpowers. That's a little unfair.
I don't know. Baba Yaga's got some superpowers too.
There we go. All right. Let's move on now to the final question of the day. And the final email today comes to us from Barry Wiseman, who writes, "To me, Game of Thrones is the greatest TV show in history, and I've never looked forward to anything as much as the upcoming final season. I wanted to know if you saw the interview with the CEO of HBO saying that he's seen the rough cuts of all the final 6 episodes, and he basically said that the final season is 6 epic movies. Do you think Game of Thrones is about to deliver us something that has never been seen before on television? Thanks." And before we get that, Barry, I'll just give full disclaimer. I do not think Game of Thrones is the greatest television show in history, but I am a Game of Thrones fan. And I've become as each season has progressed, I've become a bigger fan. So I do like the show. Now, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, the CEO of HBO, of course, the network that produces Game of Thrones, he was giving an interview, I believe, to Variety. And he talked a little bit about his experience. He just watched the final 6 episodes. Here is what he had to say. This is the CEO, Richard Pelper. He said this. "It's a spectacle. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who, by the way, are making Star Wars movies now, have done 6 movies. The reaction I had while watching them was, I'm watching a movie. They knew the bar was high. They exceeded the bar. I watched them twice without any CGI, and I'm in awe. Everybody's in for an extraordinary treat of storytelling and magical production." Again, that's the CEO of HBO. And again, look, take this with a grain of salt. What do we expect the head of the network that's airing these series to say? I mean,
right.
When's he going to come out? Hey, folks, don't bother with this one. It's a pile of... But still, it's pretty exciting here. Now, Robert, I know you are a big Game of Thrones fan. You hear comments like this coming out. Does it move your needle either way?
Well, I think Game of Thrones has been extraordinary, and I think in television history there have been few things that represent the pinnacle of achievement in television entertainment the way Game of Thrones does. In terms of its epic scope, the epic characters, it really it really is an astonishing storytelling achievement. And the fact that HBO got behind it, and it started out not a sure thing. It was really difficult. They reshot, I heard, most of the pilot, and it might not have worked. I mean, the fact that this worked, I mean, think about the fact it's based on a series of books that has never been finished yet. So they started out with this great literary roadmap of how to make the show that just ended halfway through. And they've worked with George R.R. Martin, but if they stick the landing on this, I think it's going to go down as truly, one of the great achievements in television history. But I don't even think of it. It's not television; it's HBO. But it's different than a TV series like, say, Star Trek or The Twilight Zone. But I think it is an astonishing achievement in the medium. And by the way, I cannot wait. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, and if it turns out the way the president of HBO says, we're going to have a hell of an April and May. And May's my birthday. So it should actually
Happy birthday to you.
Let me tell you, it's going to Game of Thrones is going to end in the week of my birthday. If it's 6 episodes and they start in early April, can you imagine? I'm having a big birthday party and we're going to watch GOT, let me tell you.
And then you're going to go watch Endgame for the 4th time.
Absolutely.
After that.
I mean, wouldn't that be great to watch the Game of Thrones finale and then watch Endgame on the same day? I'm going to do that just because you can do it.
Yeah. Still hasn't seen Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, but you're going to see those two things. Oh, I had to slip that in there. At the same time, the one thing you got to say, though, is look, you can't give enough credit to Netflix as far as what they've done to evolve as a content creation body. Remember, they just used to be, a funnel through which they fed you everybody else's content. They have really developed into a great content creation place. Some of the series on Netflix. I mean Netflix.
Okay.
Netflix has evolved itself into a great content creator. They've done a great job. A lot of their series that they have are some of the favorite series out there that people love, enjoy watching. But they've never gotten to the level of HBO yet. And the one thing, my favorite show of all time is still Battlestar Galactica. The David
reboot.
Moore. Yeah, the Ronald Moore.
Another fantastic achievement in televised fantasy science fiction.
But one of the things that this Game of Thrones series has done is brought not just an epicness, but an event-like feel to every week's episode. Every week's episode felt like an event that culture everywhere gets put on pause.
Yeah.
Because everybody on the planet is stopping whatever they're doing to sit down and watch a new episode of Game of Thrones. And that is something, while I think Battlestar Galactica is better, I think Sons of Anarchy is better, whatever, I think Game of Thrones is great. And that is something that not even those shows that I even prefer have been able to accomplish like Game of Thrones has. Everybody stops what they're doing when Game of Thrones is on. And if you miss that Game of Thrones, the whole world knows, stay off your damn social media accounts because everybody's going to be talking about it. And it's the likes of which I have never seen before with a television series. And it's going to be hard to replicate moving forward.
I agree. I mean, even the emotion that I felt like Ramsay Bolton.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I've never sat at home in my off hours and thought I wanted a character on a TV show to die. I spent time pondering, does that make me bloodthirsty? I mean, I wanted him to die horribly. And the Battle of the Bastards, that episode was one of the most satisfying hours of TV, if not the most. The last two of that season were so good.
Yeah.
And then the High Sparrow gets blown up. I was so happy. I mean, that
was a great episode.
I was sorry to see Marjorie go, but it was watching that show, just the emotions that it generates in you. I mean, that's what you want. That's what you want your entertainment to do, and it delivers, man. That show just 1-2 gut punch every week. I mean, it's so much fun to watch.
It's funny you mentioned that, never wanting to see a character die so much. And of course, we all thought that earlier in Game of Thrones.
Right.
It was Joffrey, right?
Joffrey, man.
And we thought Joffrey, that's the one's got it. Then they topped Joffrey with that. But it reminds me, we were talking a little bit ago about John Wick. It reminds me of the first time watching John Wick and sitting in the movie theater when that dude kills that puppy. If a group of nuns had been sitting in front of me in the theater, they would have stood up and said, that motherfucker gotta die. I mean, you would have heard nuns get up. And you could feel it. You could feel it in the theater. Like when that dude killed that puppy, You literally, I saw girlfriends like with their boyfriends like just seething at that guy's got to die. And the most brilliant thing about that, and here's how it carried over into Game of Thrones. The most brilliant thing about that was that move where they had the bad guy kill the puppy in John Wick. There is nothing the filmmakers could have done that would have gotten the audience so behind the cause of the hero.
Right.
Because at that moment, that whole movie is about this guy getting revenge for his dog.
And it's not just his puppy. It's the puppy that his dead wife left him after she passed away.
Oh, my God. And nothing they could have done would have gotten the audience more behind the cause of the hero, and they were with him. Because no matter what atrocity John Wick commits in that movie, everybody in the audience went, justified. And with and for his car, of course. And then you carry that over when you can develop a villain like Ramsay and all the atrocities that he committed. Again, it's like people watching Game of Thrones, no matter what Sansa, no matter what Jon Snow, no matter what anybody did to get him, the whole audience would have looked at the TV and gone, justified.
Well, it's also, you've got Reek. Reek is playing that guy who Ramsay Bolton, who Ramsay Bolton cut off his, did horrible. I love the fact that in John Wick, you've got Michael Blomkvist from the Swedish versions of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, this good guy who's playing the father of Reek from Game of Thrones. I mean, again, with the secondary characters and the other, it's just the actors in that. Everything about it was great. Same with Game of Thrones, man. The problem with Game of Thrones is, I know they're doing a prequel series, but what are we all going to do with our lives when there's no more Game of Thrones?
You sound like a lot of NFL football fans when the Super Bowl's over. It's like, now what do we do?
I don't know.
Yeah, but apparently there's like 2 or 3 new Game of Thrones series that they're developing.
Yeah, but it's like it's a prequel series. Prequels, it's like, the problem is it's like doing The Hobbit after you've done Lord of the Rings. You've done this apocalyptic story about the end of the world, and then you go back and you tell a story of a skirmish.
Well, here's the thing. Prequels are okay. Everybody knows I've got an aversion to prequels, but you go far enough back in time where there's really no connective tissue between this way back their story and what went on in the current stuff, then it almost doesn't even feel like a prequel in a way, right? Like, so if you do Star Wars, I don't want more prequels, but you go Old Republic,
well, yes,
where you separate it by thousands of years, then that's fine. Then there's no connective tissue. It'll be interesting to see what direction they go with that, with the new Game of Thrones stuff, and how people respond to it, and if they respond at all as positively as they did to the original series. All right, guys. With all that out of the way, we're going to save some time now here and take some live questions from you guys who've been firing in a bunch of live questions. So let's get over and see what you guys are talking about today. Celerity X or 9 writes, did Robert Meyer Burnett see Spider-Verse yet? You want to answer that, Robert?
I promise that I will see Into the Spider-Verse today. I promise you that. I promise. I'm sorry. I get this. This is a horrible thing. It's like coming home every day and telling my parents I got all F's on my report card or something. It's just not good.
All right. He follows it up with, also finally saw A Quiet Place. Wow, so unique. I can't get over how good that movie is. I really can't. I watched it again with my family this weekend and watched it with Ray got kind of teary-eyed. Ray got teary-eyed. He always gets teary-eyed in The Quiet Place. Man, it's such a powerful, great, magnificent movie. And it was my #1 film of 2018. I loved it. Ben writes, hey, John and Rob, the newest Captain Marvel trailer is the one that finally got me hyped for the movie. Should have been the second one, but oh well. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree because I felt like that second trailer, which again was good. It was good. But it did nothing to really capture everybody's attention. And I still don't think the third one did either, but it was better, gave more sense of personality. I just thought it was a step up, and we've kind of both already addressed that a little bit. Fred F. writes, saw In the Line of Fire 1993. What a great movie. Clint Eastwood, John Malkovich. If you guys don't know about it, he plays a Secret Service. Clint Eastwood plays a Secret Service agent who was also the Secret Service agent for John F. Kennedy, who failed to prevent John F. Kennedy's assassination. It's a great story with some iconic performances by a couple of
John Malkovich.
Yeah.
This movie, I think Wolfgang Peterson directed it. I mean, it is a powerhouse studio film that likes of which we don't see movies like this anymore. It's an all-star cast, Clint Eastwood in top form, a great psychopath that's tormenting him, that's threatening to, also kill the president. I mean, this is studio filmmaking at its zenith. and go see it. It's so good.
Wonderful film.
So good.
Snake Jerusalem writes, is Snyder in director's jail? What's next for him? I think he is a little bit. I think there are a lot of studios that are a little hesitant to work with him at this point. But I'm going to be cheering for him, and I want to see what he does next for sure. I do know this. He needs to stop with the bullshit. He needs to get off social media. He needs to stop trolling with all the Justice League stuff. He is not doing himself any favors. There are some people that want to rah-rah it, and that's great. But the bottom line, he is not doing himself any favors, and all he's doing is turning off other producers and studios from wanting to work with them. He just needs to keep his head down, I think, for a while. He's too good. Look, we can criticize all we want about some of the things Zack Snyder does in his movies. Dude is a wonderful visual storyteller.
Absolutely.
And he's made a couple of not so great films, but he's made a couple of films that I just love. And I want to see this guy back, but he's got to stop painting a target on himself. He's got to keep his head down, just write some creative stuff. And I think he'll get another chance. And when he does, he'll wow us, and then he'll be back.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, I still don't, whatever happened with Justice League, I don't think we all know the full story, but it's not like he did anything bad. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, it didn't make $1 billion. His crime was it didn't make $1 billion.
Yeah,
it made 800 and something on a very expensive spend, but still, like, they had expectations. I think, look, I've said Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the ultimate cut, has a strangely entrancing quality to it. It might not be the greatest movie in the world, but there is something, the vision there. I still enjoy watching that film.
You know, our mutual friend, Cliff, did a cut of Batman vs. Superman. He called it the Arkham Cut. And I'll tell you what, it is the best version of Batman vs. Superman I've ever seen. Now, granted, our friend Cliff is a professional editor, much like yourself. He did a masterful job on that, and it made it the best viewing experience of that movie I'd ever seen. Let's see. Patrick Conway writes, first 3 seasons of Love, Hate are on Netflix US. Oh, you mentioned that series to us yesterday. Are on Netflix US, I think. It did end about 4 years ago. Okay, so it's not a current series. Ruth Negga was on it before she joined Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in 2013. Yeah, because I was saying, Ruth Negga, she's in Preacher right now. Like, right. I was seeing that, but I guess it's an older show. So thanks for the clarification on that, Patrick. Adamus95 writes, been watching some old school 1950s monster movies and must admit I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of the OG Monster B movie, Them.
Oh, I love Them. If you guys haven't seen Them, it's about giant ants. All right. And it is.
Remember the sound effects
they
use?
The sound effects are so good. The sound effects of the ants are so good. Yeah, it's sound giant ants in the storm drains. Watch and some of the effects, by the way, there's a lot of practical, like they made giant ant practical. I mean, look, it's not going to convince any people that those giant ants are real.
No, of course not.
But if you go back and you look at it from the perspective of what it was when it was made, it's still a lot of fun. I loved Them. I loved it since I was a little kid. Check it out.
All right, Taki75 writes, that movie where Captain Marvel, Loki, and Nick Fury battle King Kong was lit. Yeah, of course. And yes, the King Kong movie did star Loki, Captain Marvel, and Nick Fury. You know what? Fun little movie, that King Kong movie.
I loved it. Kong Skull Island.
Yep.
I mean, look, if you like kaiju movies, there's a scene where King Kong fights one of those things,
whatever those monsters are,
grabs and tears. Look, if you want your monster foo instead of kung fu monster foo, Kong Skull Island delivers.
I wasn't thrilled with the John C. Reilly character in the movie. Kind of took me out a number of times.
Again, goofy.
Yeah, and I don't blame John C. Reilly for it. That's what the character was, and that's what they called for. I just didn't.
But if you like Japanese anime, there's always a character kind of like, usually he's some crazy doctor, kind of like the John C. Reilly character. I knew it was a little goofy, but the whole movie was kind of goofy. But I like the fact that it's set during, everyone's just leaving from their time in Vietnam, and everyone's a short timer, and they're about to go home, and they have this last mission they have to do, and it just appealed to me. And that's why I can't wait. I mean, it really establishes it's the second of the MonsterVerse.
Yep.
We're moving into Godzilla King of the Monsters, and you've got that little monarch tag at the end. I love that movie.
All right, Javier Rios 405 writes, is Joe Flacco a good quarterback? Damn right he's a good quarterback. He's a good... Look, I'll tell you right now, I don't care what that kid did in the last 7 minutes of that game. It was way too little, way too late. They should have pulled that kid. And look, he is their starting quarterback moving forward. I get that. But it was clearly not working. The defense had that kid's number. They should have put in Joe Flacco after halftime. And because maybe then, by the time this kid started turning it on, That kid was able to turn on because at that point the defense didn't care. They were so far ahead, it didn't really matter. They still were in the game. They had a chance. They should have put Flacco in it after the half. And then you go back to your starter the next game. That's fine. That's why you have a backup quarterback. It's not just for injury, but it's that what happens if, hey, the defense just happens to have our quarterback's number today. Okay, change it up. Give them something they weren't expecting. Throw in a Joe Flacco, a former Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
Is he a good quarterback? Yes. Is he going to be a starter in this league next year? Yes. It won't be on the Ravens, but they should have gone to him at halftime. They absolutely should go. I couldn't believe that they weren't going to him at halftime. Anyway, sorry, I get kind of worked up when I talk about this kind of stuff. All right, ZOMG Ruler writes, disliked 3 Captain Marvel trailers, going to wait to rent it. Hey, you know what? Not every trailer's for everybody, just like not every movie's for everybody. Remember, these trailers are corporately produced pieces of propaganda meant to manipulate you into seeing their movie.
Right.
And if it's not working for you, then it's not working for you. I wouldn't say wait to rent it because, my God, if it opens on opening weekend and everybody's coming out saying, oh, my God, this movie's great, don't be, well, the corporate piece of
the commercial. I didn't like
put
the commercial.
together commercial didn't work for me. So I'm just going to, who cares about that at that point? But if the trailers are great and everybody's coming out of the movie and saying, this movie is shit, who cares what the trailer told you?
Yeah.
If the trailer doesn't have you interested right now, nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Then wait to hear what people say about the actual movie. If they're also saying they're not loving it, yeah, give it a pass and wait for it to rent. Everybody you know is saying they love it. Well, then who cares what the corporately produced piece of manipulation did for you? Go check it out and give it a shot. But listen to what your friends say. That's what I would suggest at this point. All right. Harris writes, just curious, how was the talk around the media when John Carter came out? I love that movie. Love the show. Been following Mr. Campea since 2012. Thank you so much, Harris. What was the chatter at the time? I remember all of us who saw the movie quite liked it.
I have a whole theory about this.
Oh.
And my theory is, first of all, when I was a kid, when you went to a drugstore and they had spindle racks of paperback books.
Right.
A Princess of Mars, which is what John Carter is based on, Edgar Rice Burroughs' famous book about Barsoom Mars, and there's a Frank Frazetta painting. Every kid read this book, and Star Wars took a lot of inspiration from Edgar Rice Burroughs. Andrew Stanton, who directed Finding Nemo, this was his live-action debut.
Yep.
They spent $250 million on this movie. It was the most expensive movie Disney ever made, and it was huge. Then Bob Iger, this is my theory. Bob Iger, the president of Disney, the man who runs Disney, has done a brilliant job, hears that George Lucas wants to sell Star Wars. Bob Iger said, there's no way that I'm going to allow 20th Century Fox to get Star Wars. I've worked with him. We've got Star Tours. We've got Indiana Jones. If George Lucas is going to sell Star Wars, he's selling it to me. And then he thinks, oh, my God. We're making a trilogy. We're making those Barsoom novels, the inspiration for Star Wars. I cannot allow George Lucas to say, well, you know, Bob, you guys are already making those big $250 million John Carter movies. I need that Star Wars has a good home. And if you're going to have a competing property, I'm not going to sell it to you. Bob Iger's like, that is never going to happen. He had to kill it. John Carter was called John Carter. They don't even mention that it's on Mars. You see creatures in the trailers. The book was called A Princess of Mars, with Deja Thoris being that princess. Disney princesses, a princess of Mars, not joining the Disney pantheon. Bob Iger had to kill John Carter so George Lucas would not have any reason to say, I will not sell you Star Wars. That's my theory.
Lacking any actual tin foil, I've made this little hat for you, Robert. That has got to be one of the most insane theories that Bob Iger killed his own franchise. Nonsense.
He did.
That is absolute nonsense.
Why?
Did they botch the marketing on this? Yes, but we've seen studios botch marketing on other things before. It's not because they wanted their films to fail.
Why would they not even mention in the marketing that it's a science fiction film? John Carter could have been Coach Carter. If you look at
the marketing the trailers were clearly a science fiction film.
But the key art, the greatest piece of Frazetta art, the original Star Wars poster.
The key art poster was John Carter in the middle of these two giant space apes.
That was later.
Fighting them.
That was later. The actual.
But they did it.
But that was for home video.
No, that came out before the movie.
Look at the poster. Look up I'm telling you.
That was part of the marketing before the movie came out.
Maybe I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. That's my theory.
Was it stupid to pull Of Mars out of the title.
Yes.
Absolutely. But I remember the discussions going around that time was there was a bunch of Mars movies that came out that all flopped around that time.
Like Mars Needs Moms or something.
And there was also the one, with the name of the guy who played Andy Dufresne in Shawshank
the Mission
Redemption.
to Mars.
The Mission to Mars.
The Brian De Palma film.
Yeah, the Mission to Mars. And they flopped.
And Red Planet with Val Kilmer.
Yes. And they thought, well, these Mars movies are flopping. We can't have Mars in there. Stupid rationale.
The man who created Tarzan, though, I mean, this is a literary property that was beloved, and it was an inspiration for Star Wars. They should have been promoting the hell out of that, and they didn't. You know why? Because Bob Iger did not want to lose Star Wars. You heard it here first, kids.
Yeah, George Lucas, who was a fan of the John Carter series, was not going to sell them Star Wars for $4 billion. Come on.
I'm saying that he could have gone to Fox. Fox had been releasing Star Wars movies. Disney hadn't put out any Star Wars movies. Fox had put out 6 by this point.
George Lucas was already in business with Disney at that point. He was going to do his deal with them at that point.
I don't know. I think Bob Iger was worried.
I think that is one of the.
And by the way, it was shrewd. He took a $250 million hit with Disney shareholders to get Star Wars. It was the greatest move in the history of entertainment.
You know what? For one of the smartest guys I know in this city, that's a dumb thing to say. God, come on, you're smarter than me. Say smarter things. All right. That's our thoughts on all that. But I don't know, maybe you agree. Do you guys have on the tinfoil hat too? Let's see what they go with. All right. Let's see here. Ghostface 1999 writes, I find Gandhi and The English Patient long and boring. Oh, some people do. Can you guys give me tips on how to enjoy them? What do you love so much about these classics? Well, the problem here, Ghostface, is you're implying that the problem is with you. Like, I must be doing something wrong if I don't like these movies. Give me tips. No, there's nothing wrong with you. You watch these movies. I think Gandhi is beyond brilliant. I think it is beyond. I can watch that every year for the rest of my life. I thought The English Patient, not as good as Gandhi, but I thought it was a wonderful film. But that's just how they hit me. If the films didn't hit you that way and you watched it and your experience with it was different than mine, the problem is not with you. It's just that, hey, it didn't work for you. No apologies needed. It just didn't work for you. And that's hey, look, there are other people out there who didn't like Gandhi either.
But I think it's really interesting that he's asking for a tip. Like, how do you... Here's what I would say. I don't know how old you are, but Ghostface, but here's the thing. The style of films and the style of filmmaking has changed throughout the years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Movies are much faster now. They're even edited faster. And I would say that what you should do is, knowing that you're going to see something that is different than what you've expected, when you sit down, sort of try and get yourself in the mindset of, okay, this is different than what I'm normally accustomed to, and allow yourself to enjoy the milieu. Watch the details in the frame. Don't just wait for the plot twists or the character introductions. Try and get into the atmosphere of the movie and let it wash over you. I think the same is true of people like Roma. Is a perfect example. Like, even I watched Roma this weekend. I ended up loving it, but the first half, I'm like, I didn't know what it was, so I wasn't really prepared. And it's these long, languid takes. But once I understood what he was trying to do, I started to marvel at how he was able to set these takes up, and then it sort of washed over me. But for the first half, it wasn't working for me at all. And then I got into it and was like, okay, I was downshifting, and instead of expecting the movie to deliver what I was used to, I had to downshift and make myself willing to start accepting what the movie was showing me, as opposed to my expectations.
Right. Two other specific tips about those two movies, if you want to give them another shot. One, I would say focus in on the performances in the one movie of Sir Ben Kingsley. I believe it won him an Academy Award.
Yeah.
He was incredible. And focusing on the performance in English Patient of Ralph Fiennes, which is, if you could, I would say zero in on those, really keep your eyes on those, and you might get a little bit more out of those movies at that point. But again, never apologize or think there's anything wrong with you if there's a movie that other people like that you didn't.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to try to fly through a bunch of these things here now. Dan Ketchum writes, of course I ignore my Mrs. John. Come on, Dan, yesterday saying, talked about one of his box office predictions that he hit. I said, you notice no one ever brings up all their misses. And he says, of course I ignore my Mrs. John. Come on. Okay, Dan, good follow-up, man. Ghostface 1999 says, John, you're still alive. Careful with the wife. Ghostface must read my Twitter, because on my Twitter this morning, I shared a story, true story that happened this morning. Ann and I go off to the gym at 5:30 this morning. We get back from the gym, and Ann goes, we're eating something in the kitchen. She goes, okay, I'm going to go take a shower. I said, sure thing, honey. And she looks at me and she goes, I wasn't asking your permission. And she says with a grin on her face, right? I said, well, I'm your husband. You need my permission for everything. The smile disappeared. And I don't remember. I have no recollection of the following 15 minutes. I think I had a little bit of a blackout. I shared that on Twitter today, so careful. Patrick Connolly writes, how much Coulson and Ronan be in Captain Marvel? I'm not expecting a lot from Coulson. I think Coulson will probably have a couple of key scenes, and that's about it. Ronan, they're keeping that pretty much close to the vest right now. I honestly don't know. I have zero idea if we're going to have 5 minutes of screen time with Ronan or if we're going to have 20 minutes of screen time for Ronan. I have no clue at this point.
I think we're going to get, again, I think we're getting a lot more in this movie than they've shown us. Because Marvel doesn't have to show us as much anymore. I think the way they were able to drop Infinity War and for that matter, Black Panther, where people didn't know how good these movies really were. And Marvel has sort of created the surprise again. They've managed, which is crazy. They've managed we used to know everything about fantasy films before they came out. When I saw Infinity War, it was almost cold. And I think they're doing it on purpose.
All right, Murray Reich writes, what a crazy ending to that Bears game, huh? You know what? I feel bad of course, Bears game came down to the final second. The Chicago Bears kicker kicks, misses, hits the upright. They lose the game. What a lot of people are forgetting is two very important things. That dude hit 3 field goals that game.
Right.
He hit the first kick before they froze him. And the one he missed was actually slightly tipped. And so this dude's getting all this hate. He hit 3 out of 4. The one that missed was slightly tipped. I feel bad for the guy.
I do too.
I feel really bad for the guy. So I hope he comes back strong next year. By the way, all his teammates rallied around him, patted him on the shoulder, said, we got your back, man. Don't worry. Even though their season just ended, good on the Chicago Bears. All right. Murray Reich follows up. Saw El Royale. I found it pretty disappointing. It's Tarantino copycat, but not so good. I disagree. I thought, look, Tarantino's not the one who created that style. Let's be that kind of noir sort of Pulp Fiction-y kind of a thing is not, even though Tarantino directed a movie called Pulp Fiction, he is not the creator of Pulp Fiction.
Right.
I thought it was solid. Did I think it was great? No. I thought Jeff Bridges was great in it. I thought it had great elements, but I thought it was quite a solid movie. I enjoyed El Royale.
I did too. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, there's a lot of movies. To me, it was a B movie, even though I love the cast. And it's the kind of movie I loved.
Okay, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Josh Crichton, who writes, who's more iconic sci-fi character, Spock or Yoda? Let the filthy debate begin. Well, I'll tell you what, if the question specifically was who is the more iconic movie figure, I'd probably say Yoda. But honestly, if you just say more iconic in just sci-fi general, I gotta go Spock. I'm not saying Star Trek is more iconic than Star Wars. It certainly isn't. But Spock against Yoda, who doesn't even show up till halfway through the second film.
Right.
I think even as a diehard Star Wars fan, I got to say Spock. Spock is the more overall iconic figure in sci-fi.
I knew I loved you, man. My great big love, my John Campea heartthrob just got bigger. Yes, I too believe that Spock is the most iconic character. Look, there is no doubt that as far as pop culture and the world is concerned, Yoda is definitely, I think, the more known character, because Star Trek traditionally would not travel well internationally, whereas everyone knows Yoda. Yoda across all cultures and across the planet Earth. But I think as far as a character is concerned, Spock is a much richer, much more well-drawn character that has a far, far longer history and a lot more screen time than Yoda.
All right, let's keep moving on here. Let's see. Lee Mallinson writes, Aquaman, a solo DCU movie with competition, outgrossed a Spider-Man/Iron Man and a Thor/Hulk movie at the peak of MCU's popularity, now setting sights on Civil War. Yeah, but I always talk about this. Always keep in mind the development of the genre. Right? So, like, there would be some people who would try, when constantly pointing out that Marvel was consistently outperforming DC at the theaters. Some people would try to come back with a very, very weak argument. And I'm a fan of the DC movies. But some people try to come back with this really ill-advised, illogical argument of, well, the first 3 DC movies did as well or better than the first 3 MCU movies, say yes, but you're completely ignoring the fact that those movies are the ones that are foundation stones for the entire genre at this point. They built the genre to where it is today. A lot of these DC movies can have some success because people loved the MCU movies and loved the comic book movies and all that kind of stuff. They were the ones who did the heavy lifting with developing the genre up until this point. And we're seeing that. They're growing the popularity in the genre. With Aquaman, you can't attribute it all just to that. But Aquaman, it was been a year, which was a move that I criticized, but turned out to be brilliant. They waited a year since the last DCU movie. It was a fun-looking movie with a James Wan in there. We hadn't had like that level of a comic book movie in a while. People just saw Venom and got a real kick out of Venom. $855 million worth. I think people have been really waiting for a DC movie they can get behind again and cheer on. I think it speaks to the strategy of DC, and I think it speaks to the point that this genre continues to grow and steamroll in popularity, and that speaks a little bit to the success of this movie right here, Venom, and to the success of Aquaman at the same time.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, let's move on here. Tyler Yeats writes, finally seeing Aquaman today, can't wait. I think you're going to have I would say this, keep your expectations in check. Don't go in there expecting Infinity War. And just going for a good, fun comic book movie, I think you're going to have a good time.
I'll be thinking of Tyler as I sit in the theater watching Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse.
Jay Miller writes, thoughts on director Justin Kurzel. He's one of my favorites right now, thanks to Macbeth and Assassin's Creed. Yes, I'm part of the 17% that liked it. Is he the dude that directed Assassin's Creed? I'll tell you what, I've purposely burned everything out of my memory. That is one of the most atrocious movies I've seen in years.
Yeah,
Assassin's Creed.
I wasn't a big fan of his Macbeth either. But here's
which also had your 2 leads from Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
Michael Fassbender, and I'm forgetting the name of the girl.
Yeah, well, I'm too drawing a blank on that.
But at any rate.
But, I didn't see Assassin's Creed. I only saw Macbeth. But here's the thing. Just because we dislike something doesn't mean you shouldn't love it.
Exactly.
And he certainly has an interesting visual style, no doubt, because Macbeth was pretty interesting to watch.
Alex Zhovsky writes, I think Joker will be a reverse Venom where critics like it and audiences will not. Primarily a dark character drama, no big action scenes. Here's the thing, Alex, and God bless you. What are you basing that on? What are you basing? You don't know anything about this movie. You've seen a still picture or two, and you're predicting audiences will not like it. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? There's no action scenes. Says who?
Right.
I'm sorry. Did I miss the press release that says the Joker movie's not going to have any action scenes? I didn't read that press release. Is it going to be more of a character-driven movie? Yes. But point to me to the last Joaquin Phoenix movie that audiences didn't like. Maybe not all of them ran out to see all, but people who goes like, you were never really here, people who saw that movie damn loved that movie.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal too.
What do we base that on?
I don't know.
Audiences aren't going to like this one. It doesn't have any action.
Well, I think people are basing that on his look. Look, they've gone the Crown Prince of Crime direction with this new Joker. Joaquin Phoenix is an incredible actor. Ever since he played Commodus in Gladiator, the idea of Joaquin Phoenix playing villains always turns me on.
Yes, yes.
And
he was supposed to be Doctor Strange. So,
right. And I just think, again, we're getting a Joker movie this year, which, by the way, whenever we talk about Aquaman and we talk about Shazam, I always forget we're getting a Joker movie from Warner Brothers too.
In October.
Which I think we should hold on to your seats, because I think this Joker movie is going to really surprise people.
Yeah, and by the way, it's like we're living in an era where A Star Is Born is a huge, massive hit.
Right.
Not many action scenes in that.
No.
I don't think, look, let's give the audience a little bit of credit. I don't think the audience are a bunch of driveling invalids, right? The audiences appreciate good story and appreciate good character and appreciate good dialogue and appreciate good narrative. We're not just, if you don't have all the explosions, I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, you can add to it, but let's give it a little bit more credit. Yeah. And by the way, who's to say the critics are going to like this movie? I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Right.
But there have been other movies I was looking forward to that ended up being craps. I don't know. Look, let's wait and see, Alex. Let's wait and see.
Report back, though. Tell us what you think.
We're just going to fly through just a couple of more here because we're running out of time. I'm Upset writes, more likely biopic, Snoop Dogg, Diddy, or Jay-Z. I'm going to say Snoop Dogg. I think Snoop Dogg's a more likely biopic.
I do, too. And plus, I love Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, and he's just somehow find a way to keep himself so relevant.
Yeah.
For so long.
Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg.
Oh my
one
God,
of the greatest duos
combos
in TV
ever.
Come on.
All right, Guitar Dude 513 writes, how many movies have reached $1 billion with under 70 million opening weekend like Aquaman? DC seems to have staying power overseas. No, there have been a number. Remember, there have been, I believe we're getting close to 40. 40 films have joined are in that exclusive $1 billion club. And I think there have been a number of them that have opened under $70 million. As a matter of fact, the highest grossing movie of all time, I believe, opened to under $70 million.
Avatar.
I believe Avatar opened, and it made $2 billion
Yep.
At the box office.
Aquaman has sea legs.
It has.
Sorry.
And Aquaman, DC staying power, I don't know how much staying power it's had because, look, on its second week, it's not like it opened at 70 and then pulled an Avatar when it went up to like 90 the next weekend. Aquaman opened at 70, dropped down to 50, dropped down to 30. So it's not like it has amazing legs at this point, right? It's had a great international hit. It's done well domestically. I don't know that we can make the argument that it's had really superior legs, especially now when you look at the domestic numbers. The second weekend drop was a good drop. It was a really good, positive, minimal drop. But then it dropped, $30 million its third weekend. It's not like it's got crazy legs.
As far as worldwide box office, Aquaman has been a strong and steady swimmer.
You guys at home could not hear Jonathan and Ray. Just the size. Okay.
I'm sorry. The jokes are flying fast and furious.
Rami J. Royster writes, you got people out there who need you, and so do I. Haley Steinfeld, 2018. I tell you what, I'm still kind of surprised by how much I liked Bumblebee. I'm still kind of surprised. And by the way, I think it was a better movie than Aquaman. I like Bumblebee.
Great in it.
She really is.
She's like if I was a teenage guy, I'd have a poster of her on my wall.
Girl can sing too, by the way.
I mean, she does the end credits. True Grit.
Oh, well, I believe she was like one of the youngest people ever to get an Academy Award nomination for her role in True Grit.
She's a fantastic actress.
But Edge of 17 is what you have to watch her in. Like her with Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
Boom. It was just crazy good. Thanos Cuveras writes, if you only allowed to see one movie in 2019, which? Oh, well, that's easy for me. I'm not telling you which movie I think is going to be the best movie 2018, or 2019, I mean. I'm not saying this is going to be the best movie 2019, not at all. But if I could only watch one, obviously it's going to be Star Wars Episode 9. If I only could see one, and I'm not saying it's going to be the best movie 2019, but I am who I am, it would kill me not to see some of these. It would kill me not to watch Lion King. It would kill me not to watch Endgame. It would kill me not to watch a lot of these movies. But I would have to go Star Wars.
Look, I'm sure I'd have a good time at Episode 9, but it's going to be Avengers Endgame for me.
Yeah, I'm completely understandable too. Let's see. I'm upset, right? Still think a Spider-Man won't be in Venom 2. Yeah, I still don't think there will be.
Nope.
Not as, because it does sound like, as predicted, because of the success of Venom, Sony feels confident in re-upping their deal with Marvel to keep Spider-Man in the MCU. So now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee he won't, and I'm not saying I wouldn't get a kick out of it if he did. But if you ask me if I think he will, no, I don't think we're going to see Spider-Man.
No,
Ray's asking what about no, because I do not think, I don't think any version of live-action Spider-Man. I think as long as Marvel has a live-action Spider-Man going, I do not believe Sony is even allowed to have a live-action version of Spider-Man going at the same time, as long as that deal's in place.
I agree. And plus, why dilute what is an amazingly successful franchise that nobody thought was going to be as successful?
Yeah.
You know where you put Spider-Man? In Venom 3. That's where to stick the landing, to tie it all up in a bow. That's where you do it.
Sebastian Ray, it happened. Live hit movie overload for last week. Oh, I've hit movie overload for the last week. There are a lot of good movies to see right now. Yep. I wasn't. Look, quite frankly, I was a little bit disappointed with Mary Poppins, but it's still a good movie. It's still good. You got Bumblebee, you got Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, you got Aquaman in theaters right now, you got A Star Is Born is still in theaters, some theaters right now, you got Vice in theaters right now, it's a really good couple of weeks to be a movie fan. And, now we got that new Keanu Reeves, what's that one called, Replicant or something?
Yeah, I've been looking at trailers for that movie for like a year and a half. And look, it's a science fiction film. I have to watch every science fiction horror film that comes out, but... Yeah.
By the way, I'm critical of Netflix original films. They have a couple of really good ones, but a lot of really bad ones. New trailer dropped, I think today, for a new one with Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh man,
called Polar.
I can't wait to see. Even though it looks like John Wick,
I'll tell you what. I watched this Polar trailer, and I just started salivating. I'm like, are you kidding me? This looks amazing. I'm not even going to try to describe it. Look up on YouTube the trailer for Polar with Mads Mikkelsen. I can't wait to see this.
By the way, can I just say, somebody suggested on one of my streams on Robservations to watch a Netflix show called Smoking. It is a Japanese series about these homeless assassins that kill people. It is bananas, and it's only a half an hour per episode. Whoever told me to watch that, thank you. Watch Smoking. It's bananas.
All right, just a couple more here, guys. We're going to race through these and wrap it up today. Jason Twinner writes, Aquaman was the Flash Gordon of this decade, and I mean that in the best possible way. Cheesy, action-packed, colorful, and just a guilty pleasure. It's hard for me to disagree.
Me too.
And, it's funny because I remember you and I went to that first screening in an IMAX a few weeks before it came out. And, going in and sitting there, look, I had thought this was going to be a good movie. I've been enthusiastic about it ever since they announced Jason Momoa was going to be it, but particularly when they got Juan to direct. But I still wasn't sure what we were going to get. And I still wasn't sure how I would feel about it. And I was so pleased coming out of that theater going, woo, man, I am so glad I like that. Because it's just a good, fun movie.
That's what it is. It's just wacky fun.
And by the way, kicks off with a great action sequence with his mom, played by Nicole Kidman. Great. Every time I watch that movie, honestly, it might be the best fight scene in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Is that open one when the Atlanteans
Long
come for his mother? Really good stuff. Okay, Robert Perez writes, Happy New Year to all the staff. The Venom graphic is badass. That's a little bit of Ray's handiwork. Is badass. Will episode 9 benefit the same way that Aquaman did by having a year gap in between? I'm not so sure about that. First of all, Solo was really good. I think Solo was really good.
I don't understand. Look, they just shouldn't have made a young Han Solo movie.
No, they never should have made that movie.
When we saw an old, they should have done an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie with
Ewan McGregor,
because that would have been new. They could have added. But I like Solo, and the more I've watched it, I have the Blu-ray, the 3D Blu-ray.
Good adventure. Look, but the fact of the matter is this too. There's a little bit of a situation. It's not like you're coming off of a Justice League that made barely scratched $600 million.
Right.
You're coming off of a movie that was the number one grossing film of the year that it came out of, which I believe is 2017. It was the number one grossing film of 2017. Made over $1.3 billion at the box office. It's a little bit of a different situation. I don't know that episode 9 is going to be. Look, I'm in the same boat with episode 9 as I am with Endgame. I don't know that either of those films hit $2 billion. I'm not sure. They both have the potential to hit $2 billion. Absolutely they do. I'm just saying I'm not going to fall out of my chair in shock if both of those films come in like 1.7, 1.8, 1.9 billion. I also won't fall out of my chair in shock if it hits 2.1, like an Endgame hits 2.1, 2.15, something like that. I still don't think 2.5. But I think, there's a big window there.
I think the real problem with episode 9 is that there isn't anything we're waiting to see. They haven't left us. Like Empire ended on a cliffhanger. Last Jedi basically ended with a young boy looking up, using his force powers to pick up that broom.
Yeah, which, by the way, I did not like that ending. I didn't like that little callback.
But it had nothing to do with the characters we were
following. I agree.
And what, episode 9, we're just expecting something, I don't know what's supposed to happen. Why am I waiting for episode 9? We're going to see Daisy Ridley and Kylo Ren, Rey and Kylo Ren do what again? Like have the same kind of conflict?
I think they're going to have to set it up with their marketing. Whatever it is that they need us looking forward to, they need to set up with the marketing. And I still believe there is an open window for JJ just to bring Luke back.
Oh, he's got to come back.
I mean, and I don't even mean as a Force ghost. I mean, he never actually died.
Right, of course. And that's the only thing that people will care about. Because I'm convinced nobody really cares about Rey and Kylo Ren because their story hasn't gone anywhere that interesting. It did in Last Jedi. I thought their conflict and their talking to each other and all that was really interesting.
Yeah, they did some good stuff.
And if she had gone with him at the end of Last Jedi, then I'd been like, oh my God, are they going to get her back? Are they going to rule the galaxy together like Luke and Vader could have?
Dun, dun, dun.
But, that's not what happened.
All right, last question of the day comes to us from Robert, and Robert writes, you are a Warner Brothers executive. Do you still reboot the DCEU? I thought there was an opportunity to reboot the DCEU. There was an opportunity and a window to do it. But I said a long time ago, that opportunity is past. I think that they bypassed that. They chose to go in a different direction. And I've always said, while I think shooting from here, you have your higher percentage chance of success, that doesn't mean shooting from here won't work. They went in a different direction, and they've had some success with Aquaman. Here's hoping for the same kind of success, or at least close to the same kind of success with Shazam. We already know what Wonder Woman can bring to the table. I just think the window's passed. If I'm an executive of Warner Brothers now, and I just came on board Warner Brothers today, and today I'm in charge of Warner Brothers, no, I don't reboot at this point. No. I would have, if you had brought me on a year ago, I reboot the DCEU. Today, I do not, because that window closed about 6 or 7 months ago.
Totally agree.
All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. For all of you guys who sent in Super Chat questions that we didn't get around to, don't worry. I'm going to take all these questions, and they're going to get answered in an upcoming companion video. Watch for the next companion video to drop a little bit later this afternoon or tonight. So all these questions that you guys sent in will get addressed, and we'll, of course, take more questions tomorrow. I want to thank, of course, my cohort today, the one, the only, the wise, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert Meyer Burnett, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me in the grocery aisle buying more tinfoil. But you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my website, theburnettwork.net, one word. And I'll do another live chat today. And you can come at me, bro, if you don't like my theory about John Carter.
And you guys, of course, can follow me simply on Twitter, just at John Campea. By the way, just checking in with that question of the day of if John Wick 3 is on par with 1 and 2, do you think it's in the conversation for the best action trilogy of all time? Right now, we're sitting at 74% of you are saying yes, 26% of you are saying no. Same thing that it was actually a little while ago, so staying pretty consistent. Probably going to get the same numbers for tomorrow. All right, guys, that will do it for us for today. Don't forget, we'll be back again tomorrow morning with another episode of the John Campea Show. Make sure you come on back and join us. And, of course, another companion video will be dropping a little bit later today, getting around to some of these questions that we didn't have time for in the live show, but we'll get them answered in a video. So special thanks to Jonathan, to Ray, to Robert Meyer Burnett, especially to you guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.